Hi, Soul Sisters. I hope everything is going well, that you had a great President's Day, and some of you I know are off this week. Um, but I wanted to just send you a little message to talk about teacher research, where you are right now, where you're going. So, at this point in your teacher research project, you should have your question, you should have the big learning that the question is based on, and you should have begun gathering a lot of data. What I'm hoping for at our next meeting is that you actually bring in all the data you've collected so far. So I just wanted to review for a minute the kinds of data that you are probably collecting based on the question that you have. So most of you, I think, have been doing observational notes, and remember, those can take place in a lot of ways. You could just be doing a notebook and writing down words in a notebook. You could be keeping it after school every day on your laptop. Some people are audio recording them. Some people may be just using sticky notes during class, that they're writing down ideas and then throwing it into a notebook afterwards. Some people might be doing checklists for this. Whatever you're doing is fine, but remember, trying to get as many notes as you can from your own observations of what's happening in the classroom is really important. So that's the first thing, first data gathering method we talked about, and hopefully you're going to bring some of that in next time. Another data gathering method that we talked about were questionnaires and surveys. And so hopefully you've done a few of those, maybe one of them, maybe more than one, to try to get some information from a larger group of students or teachers or whoever you're working with. So remember, those could be open-ended or close-ended. They could be things where kids are just checking off. There could be something in which you have pictures and they're responding to pictures, but some kind of written survey or questionnaire is also a really important part of the research. The third data collecting method that we talked about is interviews. Hopefully you've had a chance to do one or more interviews of students or teachers or parents or whoever is the group that you want to find information from. Remember, interviews are important because they can let you go more in depth than you could go on a questionnaire. And they can let you notice something that maybe was a little odd or interesting that happened in your classroom that you want to ask more questions about and learn more from. And remember, those interviews could be formal or informal. Informal could be you just sit down and chat with a kid and jot down the notes of what he or she said. More formal could be something that you audio taped or videotaped and have done a transcription, at least a transcription of part of it, to try to really figure out what everyone is saying. Remember, we talked about transcription is important because it lets you see the words on the page and lets you go back over them in some more in-depth ways. The fourth method that we talked about last time was about gathering artifacts. Artifacts meaning examples of student work, your lessons, documents from the school, any kind of written artifact that you could gather and take a look at that and see how that supports a response. So it might be drafts of student papers, it might be brainstorming, it might be journal writing. Whatever you can gather on that would be really useful to be able to look over. So what I'm asking you to do is to bring whatever data you've gathered in with you next time. We want lots of data points, as we've talked about, because that does what we call triangulation, right? So it lets you look at the data that you've collected from different perspectives. So you're not just saying, oh, I have one piece of data and it says what I'm thinking, done, right? You want to go more in depth. And so when you have several data points that you can look at, so you have an interview and you have a survey and you have some field notes, it gives you multiple angles to look at something to try to understand better what's going on. Because that's what this is all about, right? You're doing this research to try to understand more clearly what's going on in your classroom in order to answer your question. So when you bring all that with you next time, we're going to talk about how to go through your data and make something of it. How do we look for themes? How do we look for important points? So we'll actually have a great working session when you bring that in, and we'll talk about how to identify themes, how to do some color coding perhaps, how to really identify what's happening. So that's what you're aiming for. Now, if you're listening to me right now and you're starting to get panicked because you think, I haven't gathered enough, I don't know enough, I haven't had enough time, don't worry. Bring what you have and we'll go through it, what you have, and we'll talk about that. Remember, when you start thinking about yourself as a teacher researcher, it's an ongoing process. So what you gather this year may be sort of just teaching you how to do it. So next year you'll take on a fuller project that you can really go more in depth on. So don't worry, bring what you have and we'll talk about it and see what happens next. And remember, send me an email if you have any questions. I'm happy to look at stuff along the way and to do anything I can do to help. Remember, my email is kathy.fleischer@emich.edu. Okay. Hope you have a great, if you're on break, have a great rest of your break. If you're teaching, hope your week goes really well. And we'll see you soon.